Excellent. Okay, that is great. Okay, so I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody for dialing in, especially our panel. I think we'd agree that these are pretty unprecedented times at the moment, and over the past month we've been organising a number of different webinars looking at different geographical regions and different sectors, and we thought it'd be really good to organise a recruitment workshop basically to allow to basically help individuals who are looking for positions for the first time, how to use LinkedIn, how to position your CV, and actually get some feedback from some pretty experienced recruitment consultants that work at Core, who might be able to help you with elements of your job search as well. Just to kind of give you a bit of an idea in terms of volumes, and these numbers aren't meant to be depressing, they're meant to be something to give you an idea of the volumes that we're actually dealing with at the moment. Is that on an average week at Core Recruitment, we receive around about 14,000 applications that come through every single week. At the moment, we're up to about 46,000 coming through the agency every single week. So it's ever more important that candidates, when they're submitting themselves for vacancies, do actually kind of like put relevant information, they tailor their application properly, and that they've got good updated LinkedIn profiles so that they can basically be checked out by consultants faster and more kind of like efficiently, also submitting themselves with kind of like relevant details and information. As a recruitment agency, most of what we do is kind of like mid to executive level. And with that, we probably are looking at submitting around about the top 3% of the market. So that's not just applications, that's also us headhunting people, using our networks and all of that side of things as well. So a lot of the time when, even when we are going through those 46,000 applications, we would probably expect only to use about 1% of those individuals when we're actually submitting them. So it's ever more important that whenever that's just us as an agency, and I'm sure every other recruitment agency and headhunting company out there is doing the same thing. So it's ever more important that when you are presenting yourself and you're putting yourself forward to a prospective recruiter or a prospective employer, that you do it in the right possible way. Just to give you a mark in terms of like interest, we've had just shy of 500 people that have signed up for this webinar this afternoon. So I think that there is obviously a lot of interest in terms of how to present yourself properly, get your CV out there, and then take things from there. Now, the panel that we are just going to move around very quickly, there's Hollie, who looks after executive recruitment, Sonny, Stuart Hills, who's our operations director, Sharlene, Sonny's head of retail, sorry, and Sharlene, who looks after our head office support roles in Canada. As we work around the group, they are going to introduce themselves again when they answer the first question, and they'll also give a little bit about the types of roles that they recruit for as we work through the session. We've structured questions for probably about the first 20 minutes of the panel, and then after that, we will open up to questions from the group. You can submit your questions in two ways. The easiest way is for you to email them to christian@corerecruitment.com. That is the email address that was on the link to signing up for this webinar. And I've also posted that email address in the comments box as well. There won't be a Q&A part of this Zoom call, just so we can funnel through it and get through as many questions as we possibly can. Great, so we're just going to crack on now with our first question. And then go from there. And this section is about advice for approaching the job market. This first question is for Sonny, and it is it better to focus on your LinkedIn or your CV? Sonny, over to you.
Hi everyone. So as Christian already mentioned, I head up our food retail division. So that's anything from your food retail, grab and go, coffee, or faster food side of things. Myself and my team, we look after anything from supervisor level right up to operations director. So if there's anything you want to know or get in touch with, please feel free. Back to the question, really good question actually. In fact, I actually think it's just as important to focus on LinkedIn as much as it is your CV. I'd say they complement each other. So for example, if someone sees your CV for the first time, they'll often be referencing your LinkedIn as well. So a couple of things to make sure, obviously your dates match up with your CV. Your LinkedIn must be catchy and easy to read, and the titles and company dates match both your CV as mentioned before as well. Another good tool for LinkedIn is obviously if you're if you're not looking for a job and you just want to stay connected and see what people are doing in the network, that's also a really good tool. So following companies, seeing what they're doing, see who's opening. So I'd say it's just as important to keep your CV updated. And another thing as well, while you're actually looking for a job, we search on LinkedIn, so you will come up in our searches if your LinkedIn profile is up to date.
Perfect. That's great, Sonny. Is there any particular things you look for in a LinkedIn profile?
So most definitely, I'd say really good structure to the actual job title and understanding what that person does, maybe in a short form. So just sort of quick bullet points, and any promotions as well. You can actually update your LinkedIn so it shows the dates as well, so really clear. And yeah, most definitely, I'd say that's one of the things. A clear sort of picture, not that the picture goes by anything, but it just helps to make you sort of stand out as well. And yeah, just keep it professional and snappy.
Fine. For people out there who aren't aware of LinkedIn or haven't kind of like signed up with LinkedIn yet, how important would you say it is?
Well, I actually read something the other day on a blog, and it said if you don't have LinkedIn, you don't exist, which was quite funny. But obviously, I don't think it's that dramatic. But definitely, as a recruiter, I mean, I know it's my homepage browser. I definitely use LinkedIn every day. It's almost like another database for us recruiters and potential clients that are looking for people. So I'd say it's really important. Going back to the whole networking side as well, it just keeps you aware of what everyone's doing. So whether it's if you're looking for a job or you just want to stay aware of the market and what people are doing, yeah, I would say it's definitely important. So if there's anything that you're not sure about on LinkedIn, especially in times like this where we've got quite a lot of spare time, we're more than happy to help on LinkedIn. And I mean, I'm not an expert, but I know enough about it to help anyone. So please do get in touch.
Excellent. And just on the theme, Sonny, that we're obviously trying to get candidates or kind of trying to get individuals to get the best way of presenting themselves. How many CVs do you get kind of on a Monday morning when you come back in after the weekend on average?
Wow. I think it can vary. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I come into 400 CVs.
Okay.
So yeah, and that can vary daily. So yeah, definitely a lot of applications coming in, especially over the weekend.
Fine. And when you're screening those 400 people, I mean, just to kind of get a bit of an idea, when you open a CV, what's the first thing that you look for when you open a CV?
So the first thing I look for is companies, stability, and job titles, and also, as I say, I think the three main things for me are stability, job title, and figures, revenue, turnover, team size, management. Obviously, we'll always cover that in our initial screening, but that would definitely make you stand out from maybe 10 CVs that don't have that, because it's already quite catchy and it's already kind of ruled out a lot of questions that we may ask in our initial interview process.
Right. And when was the last time you read a cover letter that a candidate submitted to you?
If I'm honest, I barely read them. I think I may skim over it, but they're not that useful, I would say so personally.
So you go straight for the CV, straight for the company's turnover figures and the kind of
Most
numbers.
definitely. And then
Okay.
to LinkedIn as well. Yeah,
Okay, fantastic. That's great, Sonny. Thank you very much for that.
no
I'm going to come
worries.
over to Sharlene now in terms of what's your advice for individuals who are looking to create a great CV?
Yeah, hey guys. So first, I'm Sharlene. I'm based in our North America team. So I cover all head office positions, so marketing, finance, HR, and then I also cover everything in contract catering as well. So in regards to creating a good CV, I think some people will find this harder than others. If you're someone that doesn't like talking about yourself, I say to my candidates, sit down with a friend or a colleague, have a coffee, and just talk about what you do day to day. I think sometimes it's easy to forget what you've covered and your achievements and that sort of thing. Once you've got a good base, I mean, there are good websites out there to give you kind of good structures of resumes. What we recommend is you start with a summary. There should only be a sentence or two long, just listing sort of your objectives, what you're looking for in your next position. We then go into our employment history. As Sonny said, it's really important to obviously include your company, your dates. So these should include the months that you work as well, just so we can actually see how long you've been at that company. Then sort of your key tasks, so what you sort of do day to day, and then go into your key achievements. Again, I think Sonny mentioned it's really important to put in figures, so turnover size, teams you've managed, budgets you've managed, that sort of thing. That sort of helps you stand out. From then I'd go into your education, and then your skills, where you can sort of list, you know, technology platforms that you use that might be relevant, other languages you speak, that sort of thing. Overall, I think don't bother too much with text boxes and borders, that sort of thing. Keep it simple. You know, sometimes when you open the CV on a different computer, formats change, that sort of thing. So just keep it completely simple. And then I also say as well, sweat the small stuff. So your grammar, your punctuation, read over your resume, give it to a friend or a colleague to read over, and then ask your recruiter, send it to your recruiter, ask them for feedback, ask them if there's anything more you can add to your resume.
Excellent, Sharlene, that's great. We have had a question come in that I'd quite like to bring up with you just now, and it's from Frederick, and he's asked, do you prioritise applications from any specific area? So for example, if we get CVs that come directly from the core website, as opposed to from job boards or from third-party aggregators, or do you just look at all of your CVs together?
I would look at them all together. I would say majority of our applications do come through our website. So if you are looking, I would try our website first. But no, I wouldn't prioritize that.
Okay, fine. So kind of pretty much from everywhere. That is great, Char. Thanks very much. Moving on to Stuart now. And if a candidate wanted to change sectors, what approach would you recommend, Stuart Hills?
Hi everyone, I'm Stuart Hills.
Do speak up just a little bit. You're very quiet.
Hi everyone, I'm Stuart Hills and I'm UK Operations Director. So I work alongside Christian Doyle, sort of running the whole operation in London, the agency. My area of expertise, I would say, is licensed trade. Anything pubs really does fall under my umbrella, and that's really from general manager right up to ops manager and OD kind of level. But then I do dip my toe into sort of restaurants and QSR from time to time. So that's generally what I sort of oversee. Going back to the question, I mean, it's quite a common question that is asked in terms of people do come to us quite often and they want to move to different sectors. I'd start by saying, I mean, always be aware that you need to go to the agency where your skill set lies, because that's the most important thing. So for COREcruitment, we are predominantly a service-led hospitality agency, and that's what our USP, and that's what sort of roles you should be coming to us for. So for moving from sort of sector to sector, if you say licensed trade, then you want to move to maybe restaurants, or you want to move to contract catering. It really does depend on the needs or the wants of the client at the time and the spec that we actually get. It can be done. Sometimes it's not the easiest thing that can be done, but what we do generally is we're looking at transferable skills. We're looking at the skills that you've obtained in your role and how they can transfer across maybe into contract catering from restaurants. So I think that's something to be aware of. And of course, if you don't have those skills and you don't have that knowledge and know-how, you know, social media is such a great tool to follow companies that you want to get into, follow companies that, you know, that interest you. Say if you're coming from supermarkets and you want to go to licensed trade, follow licensed trade and learn as much about that, because when you turn up and you do, if you get an interview and you show that passion and that keenness and you show actually I've done this on my own, it could make you stand out against other candidates. So I'd say, like, just bear those tips in mind and use the resources around you, which is really the internet. There's so much on there to make you more worldly and to understand the sector that you're going into, and just know why you're going into that sector. And most people, I find, if they have the knowledge, the know-how and the passion, if you show passion during an interview for a new sector, that's what employers are generally looking for. So hopefully that gives you some insight.
Perfect, that's great. Stuart, how long have you been in recruitment for?
I've been with COREcruitment 12 years, and that's on a perm basis. And then 2 years before that in another recruitment agency dealing with temp recruitment.
And if you were going to give a candidate some advice in terms of, like, you know, they're looking for a job and the best way of getting in touch with a recruiter, what would that be?
I'm sometimes a bit old school. I don't think it's a problem to sometimes pick up the phone and have a chat with that consultant, and then you've got that initial contact. You know, make sure, like Sonny said, you've got a LinkedIn, you connect with that person and do it that way. Obviously, like Sonny mentioned, he comes in on a Monday and he's got like 400 CVs to look at. That's a lot, but I think sometimes you can make that connection by phone rather than just add a CV straight in, email us directly, or our emails on our LinkedIn. And sometimes it's not the way that you're going to get to a top, but if you have got 600 CVs, sometimes it's better to use your initiative and do what the other candidates are not doing to make yourself stand out.
Good answer, Stu. Good answer. Thank you for that. I'm just going to come over to Holly. Holly, for candidates that are looking for new positions, where they're not exactly sure what that position looks like, what's your advice for them?
Hello guys, I'm Holly. Some of you may have spoke to me before. I do all of our executive search across all of our sectors, which are predominantly hospitality and service, and that is mostly in the UK, some of Europe and some of the Middle East. In terms of the question, I do think it is quite common to be in a role and start to get itchy feet and start to feel that you're ready for that new change, but to not really know what that new challenge is. I think a really good way to sort of structure that thought process is to start by making a list of what you love in your current role and maybe what you don't love in your current role, and also to make a bit of a list about what your strengths are and maybe what you're not so great at. And I think that will give you a little bit of direction. I think it's also good to decide what's motivating this move. Is it a pay rise? Is it a promotion? Is it a different sector? Would you be kind of keen on a different culture or better culture, more people focused? I think if you get that, it means that throughout your process and all the different roles you're looking at, you can actually keep that at the center of your search. And hopefully when you do move roles, you'll come out with something that sort of suits what you were looking for and what was motivating you to kind of move in the first place.
Perfect. Holly, I've just had a really interesting question, which has just come in, wondering on your thoughts when things return and get back up and running. Do you think firms will be reluctant to recruit due to cash flow, or do you think it will be pretty instant in terms of how things bounce back?
I mean, I think that all really depends on the particular type of company, and it also the subsectors of the industry. Certain sectors have had kind of better years in the last sort of year, and some have had a tougher time. So I think that will influence it. I think it might be a gradual move. I think when we all first go back to work, businesses will be really sort of excited to prepare and sort of structure their teams ready for growth. So I think there may be an initial influx of recruitment, and then I think there'll be a plan of probably a sort of a phase of planning. So I think that it will then kind of patter it back into normal kind of recruitment. Hopefully, we all hope.
Yes, we do all hope that, Holly. Okay, fine. Another question for you, just in terms of what you find is the main quality clients are looking for in executive level vacancies.
Again, I always think it does depend on the company, depends on the business. Sometimes certain businesses will have a really specific reason why they're looking outside of their company, and maybe it is that they are changing and diversifying as a business and they need a specific skill set that their team doesn't already have. But I think that there are three kind of main things people tend to look for. If I was to do an average, people always are going to look for a relevant seniority and is your skill set on par with what that role needs. Then they will look for kind of industry or kind of brand experience and how relevant what you've done in the last sort of several years is to their business. And then they'll also look at the kind of financial side. Do you have the same kind of level of management?
Great, Holly, thanks very much for that.
Business of the same, have you gone through the same changes they're doing?
Great, sorry, I think I cut you off there. Thanks, Holly. Right, so I'm just going to come back over to Sharlene. Now, I've got a question which has come through, Sharlene, which I think is, there's kind of a few that are following a bit of a theme at the moment, where I've had one from Andy, who is at a marketing director level vacancy, and he's prepared a full CV, then a pared down text only CV, and then a single page CV. And then there's another marketing individual who's also sent me saying that she's got experience across multiple different industries, and she's trying to tailor her CV to each industry as she applies for it. How many versions of people's CVs do you think that they need to come out with? And how much do you think that's important in terms of the screening process?
Yeah, I think I would use your recruiter for this as well. Maybe send your recruiter 2 versions of your resume. I think the key thing, and Holly touched on it before, is you want to show your relevant experience to the position that you are applying for. So, and as well, you do want to show your other experience and how long you've been working for, but I think the key things you should be focusing on is the relevant experience.
Absolutely. I mean, I just think one thing that I may add to that is that the mistake that a lot of candidates or a lot of individuals actually make when they are applying for positions is that they assume that the recruiter who is reading your CV is going to know exactly the companies that you have worked for, and they assume that the recruiter is going to know the job title that you recruit for. And for example, with a job title like, for example, commercial director, that can mean pretty much anything, and it means lots of different things from kind of company to company. So even just making sure that you give a clear synopsis of what you do on a day-to-day basis is really good. And I think the other thing, if you even kind of like list the company that you work for, so for example, if it's Sodexo or if it's Compass Group or if it's Aramark or whichever it might be, just right under there, you know, this is a global player within the food service and facilities management sector with 18,000 employees, wherever it might be, just so that the recruiter, it's as easy as the recruiter to read your CV as possible and actually understand it, as opposed to assuming information. It's just kind of like a very like neat tip. But when you are dealing with a complete deluge of CV, you're going to gravitate more towards the one where the information is laid out concisely and correctly, rather than ones which are kind of like where you actually have to go and hunt for the information. Sorry, I'll get back to hosting. So
I was going to say, people add,
sorry,
links to their resume as well. So you can add a link to the company website as well. So recruiter can quickly click on that and check it out.
Absolutely, that's a good thing to do. So the next subsector that we're going to go into is about interviewing, and I'm sticking with Sharlene. What does a normal interview process look like, and what should individuals who are applying for jobs expect?
Yeah, so I think if you're going through a recruiter, this will make your life a lot easier, because the recruiter can talk you through all the steps and can sort of help you out, give you advice on who you'll be meeting, what they're like, questions they typically tend to ask. But I think in this day and age, the first stage is usually sort of a telephone or FaceTime interview. For candidates, I think this is a good opportunity for you to ask questions, find out exactly what the company is looking for, what the position is sort of going to entail. Make sure it is something you want to sort of carry on with and go forward for. Second stage is usually meeting with who would be your direct line manager. Again, this is a great opportunity for you to sort of see what sort of relationship you can establish with this person, find out a bit more about their background, what can you learn from them, what experience do they have that can help you broaden your career. Then third and sort of fourth stage is usually meeting the wider team. And in some cases, depending on the job position, you might sort of meet the senior leadership teams, the CEO and everything like that. Again, good opportunity for you to sort of see who you will be working with and how the leadership team is run.
Excellent, Sharlene. Thank you very much for that. I'm just going to come back to Sonny with a quick question, which has come in as well. Sonny, how many pages do you think there should be on a CV?
It's difficult. I would say no longer than 2. Obviously, we all want to put as much on there and as much achievements as possible, but that's something that we can help with as well, just to make sure that the relevant information is on there. But yeah, probably 2, no more than 3.
Perfect. And just following on from Sharlene's answer regarding interviews, at operational level, is there anything that you would add in to Sharlene's answer?
Yeah, so following on from Sharlene's comments, I think it's as equally as important to, you know, find out if the company you're interviewing with are right for you as much as are you right for them. So, you know, getting into the business, seeing how they operate on a day-to-day, meeting the team. Is there any issues in the business that as an operator you're going to be, you know, sorting out? Are you being employed for that reason? So getting in, doing a trial, they call it, or, you know, some companies call it different things. It's up to them. But yeah, it's just seeing that day-to-day. Maybe following on from that, they may ask you to put together some sort of business plan. It's usually 90 days, again, sort of depending on, you know, the way the business operate, if there is any issues, or a simple SWOT analysis. So this is a good opportunity to present your findings on how you think you'd move forward with the business. And something that I'm seeing a lot more of as well is psychometric testing. So this is a really good piece of data that can provide a better all-round view of a candidate's suitability. And it's actually something we use quite a lot in-house as well. So yeah, I'd say be prepared for all of that.
Excellent. No, Stuart, just a quick question that I'll come back to you on that came in regarding HR for individuals who are looking at coming that come in from Jimmy. I think I emailed you that one over. Did you have any thoughts on that in terms of HR people who are looking at moving region?
Sorry, did you email me one over?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I missed that.
That's okay. I'll come back to that in a second. I'll pop it back through to you again. But for candidates who've already been asked for a trial shift, what's your advice for them on day one?
I suppose on a trial shift, I think the most important thing to remember that trial shifts are really important. As much as you're going for a job and it's a job hopefully that you potentially want, you're always thinking on the trial shift that it's you being judged. But I think if you're on a trial shift, it's really important for you to understand it's your job, it's your career as well that you're going for. And at the end of the day, you're going to spend more time probably at work than the home that you live in. So just make sure on a trial shift you ask as many questions as possible. You know, you get to know maybe the menu beforehand, so it's a little bit easier from that side. If you're in a restaurant or if you're in a bar, you know the cocktail list from that side. Just so you can go in and you've got a little bit of a playing field to play on before you start to learn table numbers or till systems or anything like that. And I would say just prep as much as possible. It's really important. Once again, like I said when I first spoke, it's about the passion. If you engage with the team there and you're showing that it's where you want to be and you ask the right questions, you know, like trial shifts are good. They're good for you and they're good for the employer. My only little thing that I would probably add, it might sound a bit odd, but they always know that you're on a trial shift. The management is running the shift. But just don't ask to go home. They know you want to go home, but sometimes future employers are like, well, why did I ask to go home? So just be aware, they will send you home. Normally they feed you as well, which is a bit of a bonus. But yeah, that would be my advice for trial shifts.
And Holly, what about in executive level?
Hi, yeah, so I mean, executive level, all the same points apply. Everyone's trying to sell themselves in the best light, get their personality across. I think my kind of biggest tips would be to really prepare for a bit of a process. I think at a senior level, you should expect that you would be doing 4 to maybe 7 or 8 interviews. It can really vary, and some of those interviews are kind of meet and greets just to meet different people in the businesses, and some of those are kind of extensive presentations or kind of spending a day or a weekend in the business. And I think so, not just preparing for those kind of process of an interview, but also preparing to be quite adaptable. I think the people that you'll be meeting throughout the process won't be the same, and they won't all be the decision maker, but they'll all be kind of contributing towards this relationship you're building with this company. So prepare to be adaptable, prepare to change your style depending on the person you're speaking with, and also what that interview is about. Is it a meet and greet? Is it a sort of business analysis or presentation? I think be prepared to kind of adapt and prepare and get ready for that.
Perfect, that's great. Thanks very much, Holly. Sonny, are there any other tips you'd add for operational level?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, something that a few things I definitely look out for, and I know that, you know, the clients that I work with on a monthly basis look out for as well is, and it does sound quite cliche, but I think smile, initial sort of greeting, is really, really important, and it does go such a long way. Looking alert and sort of an eager. So just remember, you know, you want it to go as smoothly as possible, and if you're receptible to the interviewer, things will go a lot more your way. And obviously, be personable where appropriate as well. You know, you want to come across sort of human in this situation. So there's some really important key points. Make sure your answers are always thorough and you've got examples as well. So usually in an interview, and I mean always in an interview, being asked a question, and it is really to gauge how much knowledge you have. So really think about the answer you're giving and make sure you've covered it. And going back to a point that we covered earlier about LinkedIn, it's about being commercially aware as well. So I always ask people, you know, to give me maybe 5 companies that they like, or even if it's as a customer, and that does give me an idea of how much someone knows about the market and how much sort of research they've done, or if they're just kind of in hospitality just to get the paycheck. So that really does sort of separate people as well. And just building on that point, I know I'm quite guilty of scrolling pointlessly through Instagram and Facebook on a daily basis. But doing that, I've actually followed, and I have done for years, but following all the branded restaurants, all the coffee shops, all the street food vendors, and subconsciously you're taking in all their information because, as Stuart mentioned, social media is such a huge tool and every day they're posting. So without realizing it, you're taking it all in and you actually just use it in your day-to-day when you're talking to people, and that will come out in interviews as well.
Really glad that you think scrolling through Instagram for hours and Facebook for hours has actually benefited you in some way,
Yeah,
Sonny.
it definitely has.
I'm glad you've legitimized that in your head somehow. Good for you, son. Right, there's a question that has come in from Mark on your earlier point, Sonny, regarding any hot skills that you think companies in hospitality or retail might be kind of like looking for at the moment. Is there anything in particular you think that would be good to drag to the forefront?
Yeah, I think if you can explain, I mean, again, this might sound quite cliche, but if you can give examples of times you've actually made a difference, you know, it's easy sort of putting stuff down on paper, but it's about how much of an impact you've made. So real examples, and I'd say the delivery and the food retail sector has come such a long way in the last 3 years. So it is thriving and there's a lot to talk about. So again, I think being commercially aware is one of the main things, and knowing your market and having results as well. And also like managing large teams and sort of big volume, if you've got a clear sort of progression of that, then that will speak for itself.
Excellent, Sonny, that's great. Thank you very much. Stuart, I'm just going to come back to you. Did you get a chance to look at that HR question?
I looked for all the questions on the right, and
Okay, I'll ping it through to you again. So for on the recruiter insight side of things, for candidates that don't hear back from agencies, are there any insights you can give them, Stu?
Yeah, I mean, just taking that into mind, what Christian said at the start, you know, that's twofold. In terms of CVs just coming into an agency, like Christian said, there's 14,000 that come into COREcruitment a week, and that number's probably going to go up over the next couple of months, maybe, because of the situation that we're in. So it's not possible for us to get back to everyone. That's just, there's 42 consultants, and that's completely out of our hands. So I can only apologize to that. We do get back to everyone that we believe is relevant for the role, and we speak and we screen those. Regarding people that are out for interview and people that we work with in terms of get them out for first stage, get them in for the second stage, you know, from that side, you know, you should always speak to the consultant that you're working with to get that feedback or chase that feedback from them. So you should, once you've got that relationship established with a consultant, you know, you keep in touch with them, they keep in touch with you, and then it should be easy to get any sort of feedback that you need for any sort of, you know, interview process that you're going through. Or just bear in mind, sometimes, you know, our main job that we do is recruitment. So 99.9% of the day, we're doing recruitment, but we work with clients that do recruitment and do other things. They could be training, they could be doing HR, they could be operational and recruitment. So just bear in mind, if someone takes a little while to get back to you, that would be why, you know, it's not their main job.
Good advice. Thanks very much, Stu. Sonny, just coming back to you, why is it that agencies can sometimes only submit a very small number of candidates for each position?
It kind of ties in with Stuart's answer a little bit. I mean, as much as obviously we'd love to sort of put everyone interested in front of each hiring employer, it isn't logistically possible. Most vacancies do have a specific sort of time frame as well as a pre-established interview process. So we do have to work within that structure. Usually, you know, sometimes, we are actually probably the last point of call at some point. So usually that hiring manager's, you know, gone to their network or their team have tried to recruit for this role. And sometimes we are the last people to be briefed on it, and they want something done quick about it. And it has to be only a short list of, you know, the top sort of relevant people. Again, sort of growing on that fact, we are always happy to speak to people if there is anything we can help on the CV pushing or that side of things as well.
Excellent, that's great. And just coming back onto Sharlene. Sharlene, there was a question that came in, I don't know if you saw it in your inbox, but again from Frederick, and he was just asking, with hospitality maybe being a little bit slow to return, a little bit about the sectors that we do outside of hospitality. Could you maybe give a little overview for me?
Yeah, of course. So obviously hospitality is predominantly what we cover, but outside of that we cover fitness, which I think is going to bounce back quite quickly. I think the quarantine 15 that everyone's worried about. Gyms, I think, are going to be really busy. We also cover FMCG, which of course at the moment with supermarkets and everything at the moment is quite busy. We do a little bit of fashion retail as well. So yeah, those are the other three ones that we can look at.
FM and property, obviously, we do kind of a lot in those sectors, and some people obviously count events as being kind of like, you know, a major sector as well. And one area which I think we have had, or we thought that there was going to be kind of quite a big shortage on this year, which has turned out to be the opposite, is regarding chef and culinary recruitment as well. There's definitely going to be a lot of chefs on the market as well later on this year. We're actually going to be doing a special session specifically to help individuals with culinary experience about how they should present themselves using kind of like platforms like Facebook and Instagram and all of that side of things as well, which might be quite interesting. Back on the recruiter insight side of things, and I'm going to come back to Sharlene with this, but can you give me your views on counter offers, and do you think that that's a positive thing?
Yeah, I think that's a hard one, and this is a question we get a lot, and I think the answer is quite divided. I think at first a counter offer can be quite flattering, but I think you need to remember the reasons why you were looking. So will the counter offer kind of solve your underlying issues? So whether you were looking for progression or a better work-life balance or money, does that counter offer sort of solve that? I think in our experience, and we were talking about this the other day, what we find with people that get counter offered is 6 months later they are looking at another position. So I think that's always something to consider. I also think that a counter offer shouldn't be used as a bargaining tool for your current company. So if you are feeling undervalued or unhappy, you should be able to go to your company and talk to them about that. The other thing to think about with a counter offer is sometimes your current employer might question that your loyalty to them, and that could potentially damage some relationships. So I think, yeah, when you do get counter offered, really take a hard look at your initial reasons why you were wanting to move on in the first place.
Great, thanks, Sharlene. Hollie, did you have anything to add to that?
I mean, just mirroring what Sharlene said, really, I think if maybe your motivation was to get a bigger salary, then it would make sense to perhaps consider that counter offer. I think if your main reason was that you aren't happy with the culture in your business or the kind of pathway that the business is going in, a bigger salary in that company isn't going to change that. So yeah, I think always go back to your main reason why you're looking.
Excellent, that's great. Hollie, there was a little question that also came in regarding buying CVs. Not buying kind of other people's CVs, but actually going to a CV rating service in terms of like, you know, if we think that that's a good thing to do for people, and if so, if there's any bench in terms of what people should pay for that kind of service. With you doing kind of like a lot of exec level recruitment, do you have any insight on that? It's not a service that COREcruitment provides currently.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell you an exact figure that you should be paying for it. I would say that perhaps you shouldn't be paying for it. I think there's lots of fantastic free advice out there, and then there is some really good services which you can pay for, which will help you through your process, not your CV, but I think be quite savvy, have a look at it first, and maybe ask for examples before you commit to paying something. There's definitely better than other suppliers. I think there's some really good resources like Monster that can start your template, or you can actually ask us and we can give you a template and kind of give you a few pointers to get you started on that.
Excellent. And just the same question in terms of Fredericks, in terms of like, you know, the areas outside of hospitality we deal with. Hollie, can you just give a bit of an overview of some of the breadth of some of the stuff that you work on?
Yeah, so from a senior point of view, senior search point of view, we do work across all of hospitality, but also kind of areas that are relevant to hospitality. So FMCG and production, supplies, platforms such as back office that help those companies, but also retail, general high street consumer, some fashion. And then all of these kind of newer tech companies that are maybe supporting the hospitality sector, such as dark kitchens and delivery and things like that.
Excellent, that's great. We're just going to come back to Stuart with a question on referencing. Stu, how important would you say references are in 2020, and what would you do, advice would you give to a candidate who can't get a reference for any reason?
Okay, so someone mentioned this to me the other day. References for me are a bit like we all eat in restaurants, we all go out. So as soon as before we go out, we're looking online to see what that restaurant is like. What was the feedback on the restaurant? What was the service? What was the cost? And you've got to look that an employer is going to look for the same sort of thing, but they're just looking at in your human self, in your skills that you have yourself. So I would say they're really important. And you know, I understand that some companies out there don't give references and they give just their date, the time of employment, and that's always quite tricky. So I would just be open in if you can't get references or you know it's something you struggle with, then I would just be transparent with the future employer, with the recruiter. I've learned through my experience in hospitality, if you're honest and transparent from the start, when you're looking for a job and you're letting know there are going to be barriers that could possibly come up, then I'd say preempt those barriers and think about how you can attack it in maybe a positive way rather than get into a 3-stage interview or 4-stage interview, which takes a lot of time and effort on both parties, yours and the future employer, and then cut to the point where, references I struggle with. And I through experience, I've seen that candidates sometimes that can't sometimes cause a little bit of an issue because everyone wants a reference. At COREcruitment, we collect 2 references when we take people on to work with us. So it's a very common thing to do, but just try and preempt it and just be honest, I would say, up from the get-go.
Excellent. And I've had a chef email in, Daniel, who's basically asking that he's looking to be promoted at the moment in the culinary field too, but he doesn't have any profit and loss experience or kind of like much finance experience, and he feels like it's holding him back. What advice would you give him in terms of developing his skills?
I like those kind of questions because I often see people that I interview and they're missing a certain skill set, which may be P&L, it could be finance, it could be marketing a business, and we all live with a phone in our hand, to be honest. And there's so many apps nowadays that you can just on your phone when you're traveling to and from work that you can download and you can actually teach yourself. Or what I found in life is actually sometimes really good to have a mentor, someone that you can go to, someone you can look up to. And you know, when you're interviewing and then suddenly that sort of question that comes up where it's quite tricky and you know that question's going to always come up, just think like turn that question into a positive. Maybe you don't know it, maybe you're learning, maybe you're at the green stage of learning, but by them showing you that you're actually doing something yourself, whether it's using an app, whether it's you've actually downloaded course and you're paying to do a course 1 night a week to self-study, that will make you stand out compared to the next 6 or 7 candidates that are being seen, because you're using your initiative, you're going out and finding the answer, rather than what a lot of people tend to do is just say, I've not been shown, or nobody's told me. When really in this day and age, there's no real excuse to just try and better yourself on your own and have someone to look up to.
Great, Stu. Thanks very much. Did you get that HR question?
Yeah, I did. So the HR question involved a gentleman, Jimmy, emailing in, is about the HR management roles coming over from the Middle East. I assume that's from to the UK or other areas of the world. So I would say, like, the good thing about HR roles are they are so transferable, you know, from HR in ER side of things to recruitment, to talent, to selection, all those skills cross over really well. So as long as you're, once again, like I said at the very start, if you're an expert maybe in a hotel overseas in Dubai and you're looking to move over here, then just play to your strengths, especially with COVID. And we really don't know what's going to happen in the next three months when we come out of lockdown, when every country hopefully comes out of lockdown. But I would just say, play to your strengths like everyone should be and apply for jobs in a very similar sector to what you're working in. I would also add that at the moment, obviously there's a lot of people on furlough at the moment, but I would say with those kind of jobs, HR jobs and the seniority jobs, there are jobs that are probably not moving as much at the moment, just because employers need these key people in a business with those key strengths to give strong advice to their staff to make sure the engagement is there, making sure they feel connected. So just be aware that that market is probably not as strong or won't be as strong for a little period moving forward.
Great, thanks very much, Stu. Sonny, I'm just going to come back to you with a quick question which has come in from Mitchell, and it relates to your trial shift question. He's saying that he's been on trial shifts kind of a couple of times, and been told that he doesn't behave like a manager, but then he thinks it would be rude to go in and start bossing people around and telling them to do things his way when he doesn't know the setup. What do you think the best way of managing expectations around trial shifts would be?
So I actually saw this question and I was hoping it was going to come up, funny enough. It does come up a lot, and I would say there's absolutely, and I say this to my candidates all the time, if it's a management role you're going for, please do not be afraid to act like a manager. And that's not going in being bossy, that's going in, that's using your initiative. You know, before you even think about acting as a manager, you've gone around to every single team member, you've introduced yourself, and you've presented yourself as someone in charge in that sort of way anyway. So you ask them how long they've been there, you ask them if they enjoy the job, what they enjoy about, and that's how a manager acts. So immediately you'll be looked at as someone in charge. And as I say, the manager running the trial will know why you're there. So definitely don't, you know, that's not me saying go in all guns blazing and start sort of telling people off or, you know, like having a go at anyone, but it's just about using common sense. And if you see something happening that you would usually be telling your team not to do, then in a maybe helping way, please do go and do it, because that's what people are looking for. I always have that come up, and it is about using your initiative, and even if it's like a suggestion as well, that will look good in your favor. Even if it's at the end of the shift, if you don't feel comfortable sort of saying it during the shift, you could maybe speak to the person who's leading the shift at the end and say, look, these are my findings, I noticed this, but in a positive way always. But yeah, please, I would never feel that it's rude. Just make sure you always get your point across, definitely, especially at a management level, anything from like assistant manager upwards, definitely.
And Sonny, given the current crisis and situation, another question which has come in from Vivian is, given the kind of, you know, the current situation and everything that's going on, and kind of they're expected to be higher unemployment levels, what do you think is going to happen with baseline salaries in the future?
It's a tricky one. I think it's going to be, you know, however businesses are doing. So I don't think they're going to drop dramatically. I think it's, you know, if your skills are set, then that's kind of what you're worth. I think as long as you're ready to get your sleeves rolled up and you don't mind sort of, you know, mucking in, then I don't really think the salary parts are, I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it, to predict sort of what salary is going to look like, but I don't think they're going to fall too dramatically. I think as the sector picks up, things will sort of get back to normal.
Perfect. Hollie, same question for you on the executive side of things.
Yeah, so I do think that there may not be a huge uplift in salaries, and I think maybe it's about looking at what other ways you can add value to your package, perhaps for the next sort of 6 months or 12 months. I think make sure you're competitive. I think ask recruiters, ask your friends what they feel is appropriate salary to be going into businesses, and make sure you don't price yourself out, but also know your value. And I think the right businesses with the right growth and the right opportunities should be paying competitive salaries. So I think it's just a matter of time before we fully know where we're at.
Great, that's great, Hollie. Thank you very much. I'm just going to round off now, kind of like, you know, any final questions that are kind of coming in. There's been a number of questions that have come in regarding CVs, and I'm just going to come back over to Sharlene on this, because plain text CVs, there's a chap who's just messaged through kind of asking if you should put together kind of like, you know, pull out or something like that. That would be good to kind of do. I mean, my advice around kind of CVs would be keep it as simple and concise as possible. Is there anything that you'd add to that, Sharlene?
Yeah, I agree. I think keeping it sort of simple the better. However, I know there are sort of some professions that, you know, for chefs, sometimes sending photos of their work, or for marketing people, again, some sort of promotions that they've done in the past can be quite handy. But overall, I would say just keep it short and simple.
Okay, fine. Thanks, Alessandro, for messaging again about what you're wearing today. That's really good of you. Just give me a second. Okay, cool. I think we're into the wrap-up side of things. So I'm just going to move around the group, starting with Sonny, in terms of kind of like your hopes for the future, and also anything that any final piece of advice that you would give to prospective candidates.
Okay, I think my hopes for the future are one that obviously everyone stays healthy and we can get back to a normal life, but in a healthy manner, obviously, and making sure everyone's safe. Obviously, I've noticed everyone sort of coming together. There's a real sense of community in our industry. So that would be really nice if we could keep that up. And there's been some great content being shared as well. Obviously, we've seen, I mean, KFC have opened up some sites this week. There's talks of Pret opening some sites as well. So I think we stay positive, we stay connected, use what's around you. And I think we can only hope and things will come out of this stronger.
Excellent, Sonny. Thanks very much, and thanks for being on the call. I'm going to come on to Sharlene next, please.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with everything Sonny said. I think one thing that's come out a lot when we've done these webinars, a lot of people have been saying just to be a bit more human. And I think that's one positive that's come out of COVID. I think a lot of people are keeping in touch with their team a lot more, treating their employees really well. So it would be good to sort of learn from that and keep that going as well.
Great, thanks very much for that, Sharlene. Coming on to Hollie next.
Yeah, as a human thing, I've heard a lot, not just on our webinars, but on other ones. Everyone's sort of been talking about that and culture. So I think my hope is obviously we all get back to work, into the restaurants and into all the industry as quick as possible, but that maybe the time has given everyone a little bit of an opportunity to reflect on some of the areas that they can improve for their teams and can kind of build on and work for the future, perhaps.
Great, Hollie, thank you very much. And last thoughts from Stuart?
Yeah, I suppose I echo what they all say. I say one thing I think is great from definitely a recruitment point of view, and I hope we definitely keep this and the companies keep this, these webinars, these Zoom chats. You know, a lot of time you're dealing with people that have to drive 2-3 hours to get to meet people, and I hopefully think that this is ingrained a bit more in people. So, you know, it reduces travel time, it reduces, you know, your work-life balance, and we adopt a Zoom approach to get to meet people in a quicker, effective manner. Hopes for the future, well, I keep saying my little motto is this is a short time in a long lifetime for all of us. So I think bear that in mind, and like Sonny said, we will all come out of this much stronger, albeit maybe at different times.
Fantastic, Stu. I just want to say thank you very much to the guys for taking time out of their days and their CV screens to be on the panel. So thanks very much for putting it all together, guys. Much appreciated. And thanks very much to all the attendees for dialing in. I am going to send a little video clip. So if you want to relive any kind of golden moments that happened in the last hour, you can definitely do that. And I'm also going to attach on a couple of articles that might help you that Hollie, myself, and some of the other guys have put together. There were a few requests that had come in for template CVs, and we do have kind of a couple of template CVs at Core that kind of individuals can use. So I'll put that onto the thing as well. We are hoping to do another one of these Zoom webinars regarding the recruitment side of things, perhaps actually with employers. Who actually would talk a little bit more about what they're actually looking for in terms of of their requirements as well. So we'll hopefully be back with that in about 2 weeks' time and then take things from there. But in the meantime, have a good weekend all, and stay safe. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.